Order. Agenda item 1, public access to meetings. This meeting is open for public attendance. You may also watch the meeting remotely. Item 2, meeting opening and roll call. We will call the roll call and verification of quorum. Carlin?
Ms. Portson. Here. Mr. Pope.
Here.
Mr. Summers.
Here.
Ms. Erler.
Here.
Ms. Rano.
Here.
Mr. Kowalski.
Here.
Mr. Campos.
Here.
Ms. Bushman.
Here.
And Mr. Robbie is excused. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Item 3, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, agenda item 4, public comments. Members of the public may provide comment pertaining only to specific items on agenda, in person or via email. Carlin, did we receive any email comments?
We did not.
Okay, thank you. And I see that no one has signed up for public comment. Okay. Moving on to agenda item 5, presentations. We have the superintendent report with Corey.
Sure. So thank you all for coming tonight. In the past, we've not had July meetings, so I appreciate you coming in. We have a lot of employment recommendations to get approved, so thanks for being here. I appreciate that. Summer school, it's the last week of summer school this week. Things have gone extremely well. Informal feedback from both students and staff and families have been very positive. We will be sending out surveys to staff and families at the conclusion of summer school, and we'll share that information with board and specifics regarding summer school at a later date. So all in all, it's been a great summer school.
How many FTE was that? Do we know that number yet?
We have that number. I don't have it in front of me. That report isn't due until a couple months after summer school, so it'll be a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can include that, Alex, when we present the survey information and some of
Okay.
the feedback.
Thanks.
Legislative update. I'm going to ask Dr. Owens to come up and share a little bit of information on the financial legislative issues that have been recently passed, and then we're going to turn it over to Alex. He's got a couple of additions.
Hi. Well, it's been interesting as things unfolded there, and they're certainly not done yet. They're still going to be cooking this one for probably 2 more years, I think. We did see the legislation passed with $325 per pupil increase in the revenue limit, with the low revenue ceiling increased to $11,000, because we were at about 10,277, something like that. We'll jump up to the $11,000 in the first year. That's about a $725 increase per pupil, so that'll help. Then the per pupil aid still remains the same at $742. That didn't increase at all. That stayed the same. State aid, general aid went up some. We don't have the final numbers. We won't get that till October 15th. But preliminarily, it looks like we're going to be getting about 4.2 million more. So that kind of offsets the approximate 5.1 million of the increase in the revenue limit. So in terms of its effect on the property tax, it offsets it. So revenue limit increase in per pupil amount tends to have an increasing effect on the revenue limit, but increased general aid reduces that effect. So 5.1 countered by 4.2, it kind of mellows that out a little bit in terms of the levy impact. Special ed aid went up about 3.3% to 33 1/3. We don't know how long that'll be maintained, but that'll help a little bit. Then bilingual, bicultural aid. I like to say bilingual, bicultural aid, high-cost special ed aid, and high-cost transportation aids received additional funds. We have not yet, the state hasn't worked through all of the formulas and the distributions that take place. That takes quite a bit of time for them to do all of that. Transportation aid at one level of reimbursement, they reimburse by distances. depending on how far you are from home. So the 12-plus mileage rate has gone up a little bit, and it was raised to $400 a member, so that has some impact, et cetera. And school library aids statewide went up $7 million, so that's probably some increase in terms of the Common School Fund effect for us in the district. That's pretty much all of it as it affected schools at this point.
Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome.
Could you just, because I've been on the board for about 10 years now, and I'm still confused. Per pupil increase versus what the legislature did. So what is the practical impact for our district if, say they had increased per pupil aid by $200, would we be seeing more funds? Or could you just kind of talk to us about what does that practically mean?
Well, there are two per pupil aids. The one that remained the same was a categorical aid, not associated with the revenue limits.
Okay.
That's the one that stayed unchanged. Okay. Then there's a per pupil in the revenue limit. And the last 2 years it had gone up 0.
Right.
No increase at all. And this year and the following year, it'll go up $325 per pupil.
And for the
So-
indefinite future, unless the governor's veto is overrode?
402.
Okay, I'll talk about that in a
400
second. So this first year, we're going to jump to 11,000. That's more than 325. That's about $725. So we'll make that one-time jump to the 11,000. And then, depending on what happens with referendum, et cetera, we'll add, in the second year of the biennium, we'll add $325 per pupil. Okay? So it'll be 11,325 per pupil will be our allocation for the revenue limit. There is currently a law that penalizes districts who fail operating referendums, holding them to their revenue limit amount in the year in which they did the resolution and the vote. So if we were to have a referendum in the spring and fail it, then we would be frozen at 11,000. We would not get the 325. We would be frozen at the 11,000 for 3 years, or until a subsequent passage of a referendum if it fell within that 3 years. I've talked to senators, and they had indicated that there's interest in removing that statute, that language. And they were talking about doing that as an independent bill this fall. They didn't want to, there was no interest in doing that as part of this whole bundle. So that's out there. So now this idea where he did a line item veto and struck the dash so that this supposedly 325 years is for 400 years. Well, in practicality, all the legislature has to do is just reduce the funding somewhere else to offset that effect. So it really doesn't carry any weight. It's there for 2 years. The next budget that comes out, they can remove that language if it's not subsequently vetoed, but they can also offset the financial impact of that by reducing something else, general aids or whatever they want to do. So, we're not going to get 325 for 400 years. That's never going to happen. So. Well, we might, but we won't get something else,
For 402 years.
Did that answer the question, Maggie?
Yeah, and I just, for me, it's a question, but also for the community too, because I think this funding for schools is incredibly complicated and incredibly confusing.
Yeah. I'm going to try to, at the committee level in August, I'm going to go through fund accounting and the revenue limit and kind of just touch base on that a little bit and maybe answer any questions you guys might have.
Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alex, did you have anything to add from the legislative work group?
The only other thing was there was a federal judge barred McGuanago School District from enforcing a bathroom policy regarding a transgender or a student who identifies as transgender. So just something to be aware of.
Thank you. And the last item I have, just wanted to let the board know that we've been onboarding our 3 new board members. We've spent time with them in the superintendent's office, and then each cabinet department is sitting down with them and giving them information on their specific department. So I also know that the board members have been spending a lot of time in WASB meetings and trainings, so I appreciate that. And then I wanted the board to know that I did create a partnership with our 3 new board members with another board member in the event that they have questions, but they of course know that they can reach out to anybody. They can reach out to Chris or I, but this partnership was just something that I decided to do this year. So that's all I have, unless there's questions.
I guess I have a question about that.
Yep.
So, board training is driven by the board. So, I guess if we have a situation where we have board members partnering with board members, my assumption is that as a board, we would take action on that. We last year created a program with our schools for board partnership, and the board, as a full board, discussed all of the specifics with respect to that program, and the board actually authorized the superintendent as part of that to establish which board members were within which schools. But my understanding is that what was created was a mentorship program. And I have reached out to Corey, and I am not comfortable with, I don't believe that's a superintendent's responsibility. I believe that if our board is interested in creating a mentorship program for new board members, we as a board should fully discuss the matter. We should make our decisions as a full board as to whether the new board members are able to select a mentor, which is a very common part of a mentorship program, or if the board will approve who will be appointed a mentor of a board member, or if the board would make the decision to allow the superintendent to do that. But I don't think this is I don't know that Corey has the authority to do it. And before that's created, I believe, like we did with the partnership with our schools,
That's
that
part of board goals. That was a part of board goals, right? Separate from. The reason we had Corey do that.
this is, no, a board mentorship program, a board orientation program is a board matter.
So
I want to be clear.
it's not a mentorship program,
wanna-
if I may.
But that's what it has been called, and that's what new board members have been told that they received. And I believe this is a matter for the full board to decide, and I don't understand why we're not.
Sure. So if I may, so I attended the WASB conference in January. I attended about a session on board relations. And they talked about new board onboarding. And one of the best practices that was shared, and I believe I shared it with the board after attending that conference, was these partnerships. To have a new board member as part of orientation, also have somebody, and this was presented as a best practice.
It wasn't presented at the board meeting, and in fact, Jen,
No.
you reached out to me after.
Excuse me, Meg, can I finish, please? So I attended that session at WASB
Yes.
on board relations. It was presented as a best practice. And so what they had said was, in situations where potentially the board, if there's any kind of contention or concern, that the superintendent could then suggest these partnerships. And so
To the board.
that was not,
I want to be clear, though. I did not create any sort of program
No
per
cadence.
se. There's no expectation other than it's a person that I've connected them with that they can reach out to if they have questions, but knowing full well that they could meet with anybody.
There was a onboarding training at WASB on Saturday morning at 8:45, which I attended. It was pretty interesting. In fact, there's some interesting stuff that we could share. I asked that question about how it was done, and the answer was that generally what happens is it's not a policy, but it's a norm. And the norm is that the board president just assigns someone to help the new member. And that's what they said at WASB. But it was more of a norm than a written down policy. One of the things about onboarding that I did want to share, and that they shared at WASB, was that they begin onboarding when a candidate declares candidacy. And I was excited to hear that because, boy, I wish we'd done that for me. Because that would have really helped me to decide and understand what was involved in becoming a board member too. Being on the financial committee was a great education, but the board is oh so much more.
So I believe that this board has been a consensual board, though. We have, as a board, made decisions. And in fact, over the course of the last number of years, a number of matters that the board president might decide on their own have become group decision-making. And Jen, when you did attend that meeting down at Milwaukee, at the time I was the president of the board, and you reached out to me and said that you were very interested in pursuing creation of a more robust orientation. And I encouraged you at the time to meet with Corey and to because you have a great background in HR clearly, but I reached out and said, go for it. Bring it back to the board. Let's
I didn't ask for this. I'll just
let's
be-
have a conversation about it, and let's us as a board be able to provide input. So as a board member, I am uncomfortable with not being aware that this had happened.
Sure.
And no one in the community knows who's quote mentoring or partnering, but I believe it was called mentoring. And from a board perspective, I just think these are the things we should be talking about. There shouldn't be one of us making a decision about what's happening for all of us.
I agree, Meg. And-
Whoever's on this board.
I agree, Meg,
moving
and that is,
forward.
and just to be clear, that is why I told Corey I did not want to select the partnerships. In fact, I said, perhaps it's best from you on the periphery to make the recommendations, and then she shared it with me before reaching out to the individuals.
If the board is interested in having a robust program per se, I would be more than happy to sit down and think through what that might look like and then bring that to the board to see if that's something that you're interested in adopting. At this point, my intent was not a program per se, it was a person to reach out and contact if they had a question.
And this is what it looks like, right?
Question.
Yes.
So I guess, Meg, what do you take exception to? Is it everything, or is it Corey's time? Is it the fact that it's that simply semantics, that it's called it's mentoring? Or is it the idea stemming off of our retreat about the meeting after the meeting concept? Or because there's three different things that I pull immediately out of that you could take exception with, 1 versus 2 versus 3, or all of it. Are you concerned with all of that, or what is it the biggest concern? Because we could do away with all of this and just have in the beginning when somebody says we strongly recommend you partner with a board member that's been here for more than one term and reach out to them for help. Don't call it a mentor. It's the same exact thing.
So that is what historically has happened. What I am concerned about is I do believe board orientation matters regarding the board are a board matter. And so just like last year, when there was a question about creating a partnership with our various elementary schools, I mean, Corey could have just signed us up.
That was a
Corey,
part of the board
time-
goals.
No, but this is a board goal as well, in terms of the board being able to work together better
There's more-
and communicate amongst each other and have an understanding how all of us believe we can foster new members. And so I think that that is a board matter, not a superintendent matter. And that the board should, as a full board, discuss it. And if the full board decides we want Corey to pick a partner for each board member, and that's kind of how we're gonna do that moving forward, then let's take that action. But if we as a board decide that we want to create a mentor program, which is how it was initially described, then we should talk about what does that look like. Is it Corey assigning someone a mentor? Is it the individual board members being able to say to Corey, I would like so-and-so to be my mentor? I mean, how do we want to structure this program? Because it's Corey runs the district. Corey runs the employees of the district. She runs everybody. We run Corey, and we run the board.
I think one thing worth mentioning too, though, Meg, the orientation of board members has run through the superintendent's
did.
office.
It
and
has
always
run
has.
through the
Always.
board and the superintendent. And the
superintendent's
superintendent
office has spent most of the time with new board members.
That was my onboarding.
isn't,
That was my
Carmen?
onboarding.
that's,
Isn't
I
that-
met
I was
with you
at
once.
everything onboarding that you were at,
No,
Jen.
one meeting.
Because we were running you through HR, we were running you through business.
I was running myself through that, yes.
What, no, that was our
How
orientation.
about if, Barb,
Barb?
I would like to make a motion. Is that all right at this point?
Sure.
This isn't an
there's
action.
not.
No, there's nothing, so you can't.
Yeah, okay.
But you can make a recommendation. I think it might be a good idea. It sounds like you have some really good ideas that you heard about.
I'd
for
like to share 'em.
potentially
It was-
onboarding.
it was
That
great.
maybe we look at creating a group to look at that. So that would be a recommendation.
G?
Yeah, I think that's a great recommendation. My feeling about it is, I knew he had something, but I didn't know what it was. Okay, and I I would like to know what it is. And if we could, either more formalize it, this is our program, and then, the mentorship, I don't know what that entails, and I don't know who the mentors are, and it's like, if somebody asked me, I'd say, well, we have an onboarding program, what is it? I don't know.
Sure. So if I may, it's very informal. In fact, all Corey did was recommend the partnerships. And Ted, I am mentoring Ted. I believe Dennis is paired with Miguel.
No.
Or, sorry,
Barb is.
Dennis is
Miguel.
paired with Alex, and Miguel and Barb are partnered. Just to give you an idea, because it's informal, Corey didn't dictate anything to us in terms of cadence, objectives, et cetera. Ted and I have decided, just based on what he needs, what our cadence will look like.
Yeah.
We met once for coffee, and he asked me questions, and I was there to respond, and so.
There's two mentors, because we have to.
So Dennis is serving with
Alex.
Alex, Barb with Miguel, and Jen with Ted.
But you mentioned yourself something about mentors having been on the board more than one term.
I was
You
just
said
using,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, you said that. But
That's an
the
example.
mentors that were picked, two of them are in their first term. So, you know,
I also think it's important, that if we want mentors, then we should, like I said, we should make a decision. Do we want the board member to select a mentor, or do we want the board to assign a mentor? And what are they mentoring? What is the substance? Because if what
provide
we're looking
support.
for is best practice and support, then we should have some understanding, because otherwise what you have is three individuals just doing whatever. And if we're adopting this so that we are providing some level of training connection, we should have an understanding of what it is.
There's no, I think the original, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I was not at the genesis of this, but this was like a way to take new board members and say, hey, instead of coming to Corey and Chris for things that are super easy, like a textable thing, And maybe I'm coming to Corey for like 1,000 things a week because I have this new idea and I'm seeing her every day, and I have this other random thing I want to talk about, and I'm like, you know what, I'm bored. I know Corey's not the right mailbox or whatever that saying is that we went over, okay? Barb probably knows, hey, Miguel, you know what? You could talk to so-and-so over at Spash. That's the mailbox you need to be at, and you're going to get the answer immediately. Corey can get you there, but it's going to take 3 more days, and I know you've met with her like 38 times this week, so maybe save her some time. And I could just text Bart, hey, I've been with Corey all week. Who do I talk to about this thing that's unrelated to what I've been bugging her about? Yeah, called principal, blah, blah, blah. Done.
Ted asked how to check email via cell phone.
Honestly, I think I'd agree with Miguel. I think that was what the point is. But if I'm hearing you correct, I think that what you're saying is that we should have a policy on the board about how it's set up and what exactly the goals are.
Well, an open meetings law, at least historically, what we have tried to do with respect to best practices is recognize that Corey is the hub and we are the spokes. And so it is important that all of us are receiving the same information.
Sure.
So
I will bring something forward at a later date.
Perfect. Okay.
thank you.
Yep.
Can I ask, Judy had a great recommendation. Are we gonna
Yes.
follow up on that?
Yep.
And could you restate that again?
Yeah, just to pull a group together to actually look at what we currently do for onboarding and make a recommendation for formalizing and maybe some other best practices, such as a mentor program and what that might look like.
Should we ask for volunteers now so you have that list, or?
Well, here's another thing. I think you should direct me to do that
Okay.
rather
Yep.
than forming a
That
board
way,
committee.
Yes.
we're not violating.
That's
the
why I'm
meeting.
making a recommendation. Good job.
Yeah, I'd be excited to share what I heard at WASB on the orientation. There was a lot of good ideas that we could use here.
Absolutely. Thank you,
Awesome.
Ted.
Okay. And if I may just say, Corey has enhanced the orientation experience from what I think Dennis and I received, just really trying to ensure that we are being very thorough and thoughtful and intentional about what is covered for new board members. So thanks, Corey.
Yep.
Could I just note, it's part of summer school. I just wanted to note it's peripheral summer school. But Carlin at her last board update talked about our bus drivers and Sentry and the demands upon them. So in our different summer school situation that we had, both the demands we put on our teaching staff to be there for kiddos 2 weeks and then 2 weeks. I think it's also so important for us to recognize that we had bus drivers providing transportation at 4 in the morning
till
10
till
p.m.
10 at night, and how many, 44,000 miles of driving at a time when usually they are off on summer a little bit. So I just wanted to note
Good
that.
note, good note, Meg. I experienced that transportation Tuesday through Sunday, and I will say those bus drivers did a phenomenal job. They were upbeat, they were positive, they were informative, and I heard so many people talking about
That's awesome.
them. So
That's awesome.
kudos to our transportation department.
Yep.
They did a nice
Was
job.
that a reimbursed thing?
That was a contract that we had with them, yeah.
Okay, thanks, Corey. Moving on to agenda item 6, consent agenda. This includes the minutes of the school board training, open meetings law on June 12th, 2023, minutes of the June 6th, 2023 school board meeting, minutes of the June 26th, 2023 school board retreat, the approval of the schedule of monthly bills, and employment recommendations. I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Thanks, Judy. Judy seconded. And any discussion? Okay, hearing none, Carlin will call the roll due to monthly bills.
Mr. Kowalski,
Yes, we're here.
Ms. Rano,
Yes.
Mr. Pope,
Yes.
Mr. Campos,
Yes.
Ms. Portson,
Yes.
Ms. Erler,
Yes.
Mr. Summers,
Yes.
Ms. Bushman,
Yes,
and motion carries.
thank you. Agenda item 7, under general, we have citizen members' appointment to standing board committees, and I'm going to pass this over to Corey.
So I'm asking for the board tonight to approve the continuation of our current citizen members that are on our committees until a complete recommendation can be pulled together. I still don't have quite enough information to put a thorough recommendation together, but feel that I will have that prepared hopefully within the next couple months. So as soon as that's put together, we'll bring that forward. But I would like, as we have done in the past, for you to take action to approve our current members continuing on until those new committees are formed.
Yes, Barb?
I would move then to approve the continuation of the current citizen member committee appointments until a complete recommendation is provided to the board and new citizen members are appointed.
Second.
Our motion, Miguel second. Any discussion?
I think that assumes that the people that were there want to continue. They're people, they have things to do. If they want to continue, or they may not want to continue. So what do we do if they don't want to continue?
If the board takes action tonight to approve this, we'll reach out to those committee members and ask if they would be interested in staying on for at least another month, so that we can hold those meetings in August. If they're not interested, I think we still move forward with those committee meetings in August, and then just make sure that if there's any actionable items, they come before the full board at the August meeting.
We have had this in the past, where in the past, actually, citizen members were supposed to be appointed in April and be part of like the organizational meeting, and it just didn't work because we didn't even have board members. And so we had a couple years there as we moved from that citizen committee members April to having them have their term run July to June, that we had committee citizen members stay on for those couple months. And it never seemed to be a problem. They were always really gracious about helping us out.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Moving on to the next item, school board trust accelerators. So if you guys recall, during our retreat, we talked a lot about success and how it centers around trust. And Chris introduced some trust accelerators to the board that we felt could be used. And so just, to quickly recap for the community to be aware, some of the things that we had talked about: presume positive intent, confidentiality, delivering the mail to the right address. That's if you have a message, deliver it to the person directly. Sideways accountability, no meetings before or after the meeting. Transparency and respectful candor. Honesty without repercussion amongst board members. And lastly, disagree without being disagreeable. And so we talked about these being kind of value commitments, things that we would, if the board passes, model and take into account.
So Chris and I went through our notes and added the edits that we heard you talk about from the retreat. So those are included in here. And just a reminder that part of the board goals, goal number 2 was a commitment and accountability to establish trust accelerators. So at some point, you're going to have to take action on that. So that's why we brought this forward tonight.
I think the only thing that I would add, Jen, to what you shared just regarding the development of the trust accelerators was part of the purpose for bringing these forward to the board was to create some alignment between work that our administrative team had done throughout the course of this year as part of our professional learning. And we have established many of the same trust accelerators, and we thought that this was a very intentional way that we could align the work of our administrative team and our board members.
Yeah, using the common language throughout, right? Okay, so I am looking for a motion to adopt and practice the trust accelerators as presented.
So moved.
Okay, Miguel motioned. Do I have a
Second.
second? Meg seconded. Discussion.
Yeah, I mentioned this at the board retreat, that I think there's a problem between what we say and what we do. I just think that's, because I asked for another one to be put on that said, and I know it was impractical, that says, if we're going to say this, then we better do it. And I don't think we're doing it. And if you want to, I'm with the board when I say I don't think we're doing it. I did talk this weekend to a couple other boards, and they're using a board consultant that they really like, that comes in 4 times a year and works with the board. This happens to be one person, and I'm not saying we got to have this guy or anything, but I think to if I read the words right, trust accelerators, that we're gonna do things that are gonna increase our trust. Okay? My question is, what are those things? It's not enough for me to say it. What are we gonna do to increase the trust amongst us? And we all know we want to. So that's my question. I don't wanna vote for it just to put it down and say, these are our goals. I think there are things we have to talk over. And I'm just putting out there that there are people who can help us, if we want to or not, or if we want to look into it more, or something like that. I'm not ready to, personally, to say, okay, these are our trust accelerators, and then go on from there. I think we need to talk.
I agree with you, G. I think we need to discuss this throughout the year to see and hold ourselves accountable. How are we doing with these? And I think if we hold true to what every single one of these things say and hold each other accountable, I think we're going to build trust. With
I would
each
agree.
other.
Just for clarification, these are basically codified things to do in order to build the trust. Like if
To
we're
practice,
in a,
to
if
build
we're
the
in a
trust,
meeting,
yes.
closed session coming up, and we didn't agree with something that happened, in that you should first of all, if somebody disagrees, presume positive intent. They're not disagreeing with you because they don't like you, and they're not disagreeing just because I don't like what G has to say, so I'm just going to disagree just to disagree, and pee in his Cheerios today. These following these rules is what will open us up to realizing that I'm not doing it just to be disagreeable. I should be able to disagree with you and you not hate me because I disagree with you. We come from different worlds. Doing these things is the point. That is what's supposed to build the trust. You may not build friends, but we're building trust. That's the point. Is it not, just for clarification, like this is the recipe to get to that end goal?
Exactly.
Yeah, we are saying that by practicing this, we will continue to build trust and credibility, right?
I
If
think
you-
there's a whole go ahead, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
And just like, delivering the mail to the right address. I mean, if we have a concern, if we have a question, to go straight to the individual versus, playing phone tag, or what is it, telephone, right? And so I think these things you will see, hopefully, G, if the board does adopt this and we all practice this, that hopefully we can come back, and this shouldn't be a one and done. To Corey's point, we should continue to weave this into our conversations and to check if you're seeing a difference or if you feel different.
I like this when we had it at the retreat. I like it now. And I think I've seen some of these things done here tonight and done well. And I think we're using some of these tools right now. And gee, I think I hear you saying you want a little bit more, but I'm not sure how to facilitate that.
Well, Ted, my feeling is like, if you take these one by one, presume positive intent is the first one. What do we do to get there? I don't think we do that right now. I think that there are steps we need as a board to get to this point. Confidentiality, I think we really need a discussion about that. Not to say, to pass these and say, all right, we want to make sure confidentiality is a thing and that we do that. Well, I think we need to talk about that. What really does that mean? Things like sideways accountability. We need to talk over those things to make sure that we are doing what these say. And right now, might be just me, but I don't think we are. And that's why I'm saying we need to talk about these. Maybe I need to talk about it. Maybe
So-
everybody else is in a different place.
So G, it almost sounds like you want a little bit more on what does that practice look like?
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, so if we adopt these today and then say we want to practice that, then we commit to how do we practice this? What does it look like? And so we would probably pull maybe another group together or whatever to actually talk about each of these and maybe have them on an agenda
I
for
think
one of our
it'd-
board meetings to
It'd be a
talk
whole
through.
board thing. I think. So my feeling is if I vote for this, I'm saying, okay, we're gonna do this. And I want to know, how are we going to do this? How are we going to hold our feet to the fire to make sure that we're doing these things? What are the things that go into each one of these? They're more than just 7 or 8 things on a piece of paper to me and to everybody here. And sometimes they're not easy. And sometimes they fall by the wayside, I think. And I include myself in this. I need this training myself. I can't, we can't be like sitting at home thinking, what's this mean? What's that? What did that, why did this person say that? What's going on there? Is there something I don't know about? Things like that. We really need some time to put this in the open.
So G, maybe this will
I was gonna
provide.
point to Chris.
Oh, I was going to say, maybe this will provide some level of comfort just in terms of asking you to commit tonight. I think as an administrative team, we feel some of the same. So we feel our collective commitment to say, we want to get better at all of these. Do we feel like we're perfect right now? We're not. But that sideways accountability piece in particular, I believe, affords us an opportunity to hold each other accountable when we say, one of our trust accelerators is to presume positive intent. I don't see you doing that right now in this exact moment, right? So the ability for us to have that kind of open dialogue here in this setting, or when we're together as a full administrative team, affords the opportunity to be able to practice those. So you're right, I don't think anyone on the administrative team feels right now we are expert at this, but we have committed to say we want to get better at this, and let's create an environment where we're committed to working together to practice. So I don't know if that helps at all, but some of the same concerns came from some of our administrative team members. So we feel like we've declared to the commitment at this point, but we very much are in the practice stage.
So
Go ahead.
I was going to say, maybe since you've been through this, maybe around each of these, you can come up with a couple questions that maybe we could have discussions at the board level, one maybe at each meeting, just what does it look like, but maybe being through it, you might have some questions that could help guide that conversation.
Sure.
Or examples of how it showed up on the
Yeah.
administrative team without disclosing any, right, confidentiality, because that would break a trust accelerator. I think that's nice. Weave it in throughout the year.
Or even some suggested secret phrases. Sometimes it's, nice to have something in your back pocket, like ouch, that, or something like that. Like, are those some of those secret words that we can
Right.
keep in our head?
Yep.
Okay.
We will do that.
Okay.
How do we put that into our vote? Like I say,
With a caveat.
That was
I'm sorry, Ted. But
okay. So
No, that's,
how does that go, if I'm voting saying, okay, we're gonna do these trust accelerators, we're gonna vote for this,
What you're committing
What
to
happens?
is that you agree that these are important steps we can take to build trust, but you're
I agree with that
recommending,
wholeheartedly.
you're recommending
That's all
that
we're
we
doing.
provide time to
Examples.
discuss more examples and what it looks like in practice,
And
which
you-
we will do.
and you're agreeing that you individually will practice these concepts.
And at the end of the day, I mean, besides this sideways accountability, there's no true way. I mean, there's no corporal punishment if you decide to not do any of this. Like, you can have a conversation, you can have a meeting after the meeting to hold them accountable if you'd like, to tell them, hey, you're not doing any of these things. But at the end of the day, this is simply a guideline for what a good board member should be considering every time they're meeting.
Correct.
Correct.
So I know people don't like sometimes bringing up the past, but I'm going to. The first couple of years I was on the board, Judy, probably you remember, we talked a lot about this is business. This isn't personal. We are on a public board. And to Miguel's point, it isn't personal. It's easy, though, on a public board for people to descend to personal. And all of these are aspirational about how not to do that. But it's something that each of us as individual board members have to work at to keep our eyes focused on the fact that we are part of an elected public body and that we each have an equal vote and that we are going to run into controversial issues, and there are going to be times that we agree to disagree, hopefully without being disagreeable. And we are
Everyone just
going
weaving it all
to,
in.
right, and we are going to have 5-4 votes, 6-3 votes, but at the end of the day, majority rules. And if people walk away from meetings feeling personally hurt because we didn't get our way, that's how boards descend into chaos. So I am comfortable with us adopting these as aspirational for each of us individually to commit to, and for each of us individually to do our best, because that's all we can
So
do.
that's the only thing within the realm of our control.
I love the term aspirational, and I'm really glad you brought that. But thinking about that too, maybe we should wait till Dennis is here before we vote on this, so, because he's part of the board.
Dennis?
I think he
The
would.
only
Dennis
thing
sounds-
is,
yeah.
there's no guarantee that we're gonna have all 9 members
Right,
here.
right.
Yeah.
And he reviewed the agenda
Yeah.
and didn't share any concerns, yeah.
Just a point.
Under the summary, the first sentence is success centers around trust, you know? And of course, we all believe that. Without trust, I think the whole organization would fall apart. I personally think, like, each one of these, we could take a session and just, I don't know, I'm just trying to organize in my head, we could do a retreat around each one of these. But it'd take 9 years or 8 years to do that. But there's so much in each one of these that we could talk about. What does it really mean to each one of us? And come to some common agreement that, yes, we're gonna do that.
Right.
But right now, if I look at it as like, I'm not sure what each one means. You know, maybe I'm being obtuse, I don't know. But I think it's a really important thing. It really important, and that it deserves more than even what we talked about it at the retreat and the little bit we've talked about it now, to just say, yes, those are our goals. Now I'm gonna say, how are we gonna meet them? And I wanna know what we're gonna do to meet them.
But here, these aren't the goals, these are just trust accelerators. The goals were approved at the retreat.
Yeah, I voted for them.
Right, and so the intent, G, for this tonight is just
To
to
support.
commit to this work and to support what these trust accelerators say now, and that the recommendation is we'll continue to have discussion about it as a full board.
And these trust
Throughout the year.
accelerators support that board goal. So this,
We can't say, yes, but at this next meeting or whatever meeting, we will discuss this. I want to know that we're going to do this, not going to get lost.
It will
So
not
can
go
I,
referendum
can
and
I
everything
amend
else.
whatever motion was made and add on to practice, maybe,
It
at
is-
each board,
it is.
at each
It's in
board
there.
meeting?
Or to develop a.
it says motion to adopt and practice the trust
I'm
accelerator.
just wondering if adding something that we'll practice these during meetings, if
Well, I
you
think-
need something that detailed, or if practice, because that's what we're really going to be doing, is practicing
And we
it.
want to do it outside of the board meetings too,
Right.
right? So
Yeah.
I would not commit to every
can't
board
meet.
meeting.
Okay.
I think if we just put practice
Just
and adopt them.
holistically.
Okay.
practice.
means as a board, we're practicing.
So I am.
Trying our best.
Okay.
So in the interest of time, and I am looking for a motion to adopt and practice the trust accelerators as presented.
We have a
We
motion.
do.
Did we have a
Yeah,
motion?
that's why I
Oh, that
said-
was the discussion? Okay, sorry. Okay, so then,
Just a vote.
without all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm gonna oppose.
All right, motion passes. Okay, next item is future meetings, dates, and times. And so we have the August 14th, 2023 regular board meeting, the September 11th, 2023 regular board meeting, and then the committee meetings, we will have the Ed Services Committee meeting the first Monday of the month. And so that falls on August 7th. And for educational services at 5:30 and business services HR at 6:30. All right, I am, item number 8, closed session, enter into closed session, 19.85, paren 1, paren E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business. And 8C, 1985, paren 1, paren C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee. I'm looking for a motion to convene into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 1985, paren 1, paren E, and 1985, paren 1, paren C.
So moved.
Right, Alex moves.
Second.
Second by Miguel.
I just want to note, I think it's important to note this specifically. So the public knows that with 1985 paren 1, paren E, we're specifically to consider accepted offer to purchase property and to consider potential offer for the sale of district-owned property. And then 1985 paren 1, paren C, it's specifically building principals and school psychologists' contracts and administrative salary report. So I just want to note that for the record, so the public is aware of that's what the specifics are of what we're doing in closed session.
Thanks, Meg. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
We need a
Oh, no, roll call.
Mr. Summers,
Yes.
Mr. Campos,
Yes.
Ms. Portson,
Yes.
Ms. Erler,
Yes.
Mr. Pope,
Yes.
Ms. Rano,
Yes.
Mr. Kowalski,
Yes.
and Ms. Bushman.
Yes.
And motion carries.
So should we
Take 5.
take 5? Okay,
That's
so
pretty good.
7:26.
Change up the order of